Thank you for joining our videos. This video is the first video in the series that describes the actual nature and structure of Seven Republic. This video will begin by first describing what Seven Republic is not. There are several things of a political nature which are not included in Seven Republic, and the reason for that will be described as we go through them. The first thing not present in Seven Republic is a president. A president is a single individual who, because of his power, tends to develop an overinflated view of his own importance, and that tends to warp policy and behavior. Therefore, it is not desirable to have a president, and we will not be having a president in this model. Seven Republic does not have what is commonly understood to be a Congress. Congress is divided into a bicameral legislature with two competing houses of legislation, the Senate and the House. These tend to run in opposition to each other, and that introduces a number of undesirable qualities that we will be referring to in a couple moments. Seven Republic does not have a judiciary as such. The judiciary, as we are familiar with it today, generally represents a group of individuals who moderate between conflicting groups through the method and mechanism of giving their own opinions. Informed, educated opinions are valuable, but having a judiciary as a separate branch of government included in the structure of government causes as many problems as it solves, and therefore there will be no judiciary as such, and conflict resolution will be approached from a different avenue. Seven Republic is not based on a system of checks and balances. The problem with checks and balances is that it introduces conflict as part of the structure of government. The introduction of checks and balances includes conflict, inefficiency, frustration, and anger. And the problem with incorporating those qualities into the basic structure of government is that it sets the whole tone of the nation. And as a result, things like inefficiency, frustration, and conflict become ingrained into the very substance of the polity at large. And this is not considered to be desirable in Seven Republic. To some extent, it's unavoidable, but it should not be enshrined and encouraged in the substance and structure of government. And therefore, checks and balances per se is not included in Seven Republic structure. Seven Republic has no need of political parties, and therefore it is considered undesirable to split the country up into ideologies based on political parties, because political parties tends to be a proxy form of government that is external to government. And that again introduces a whole bunch of new problems rather than introducing new solutions. And therefore, political parties and hardcore ideologies that they subtend and commit to are basically discouraged under Seven Republic, and although they are not banned as such, they are not encouraged. Now, one thing Seven Republic does have is voting. This is the democratic portion of Seven Republic, and while voting is important and actually central and essential, Seven Republic does not have a lot of voting. In modern republics, based on what we see in the world around us today, frequent voting is the norm. There's voting at all levels on a repetitive, semi-constant basis, and this is not a feature of Seven Republic. Seven Republic will reflect the will of the people to the greatest extent possible, but that is not synonymous with or analogous to constant voting, and therefore continuous voting on a regular cyclical basis based on 24-month intervals or some such similar thing is not a feature of Seven Republic. Now, some things about Seven Republic should be laid down right at this point, because I remind the viewer that Seven Republic is a republic that has a right-wing foundation and orientation. People who are interested in left-wing republics have a world basically full of socialist republics, and of the 120 plus countries in the world today, the majority are socialist left-wing republics, and those that are not socialist republics, or mostly socialist republics, are either communist republics or theocracies. Therefore, Seven Republic in its foundational documents explicitly bans and excludes communism as an ideology that is represented in any way within the Republic, either formally or informally, officially or unofficially. And the sub-doctrine of communism, which is socialism, is also explicitly banned from Seven Republic. Those who want to participate in a socialist republic have many, many choices to choose from. The world basically is almost full of socialist republics already. Further, Islam is explicitly not permitted within Seven Republic. Similarly, monarchies are not permitted within Seven Republic. The reason that these three structural ideologies, if you will, are explicitly not permitted is that they are all basically the same ideology, and they all share the features of authoritarianism, totalitarianism, inability to reform, and they are all essentially identical, with the main difference between the three is that communism basically excludes a spiritual quality and adheres to the view that man is the measure of all things, and the world government should be entirely secular. Islam holds the opposite view, that God is the measure of all things, or Allah is the measure of all things, and everything that happens on earth must proceed directly from Allah. And here again, this results in an authoritarian, totalitarian structure that, like communism, is basically in conflict with human nature. It does not adhere to the ordinary qualities of the human condition. And finally, monarchy is also a totalitarian, autocratic construction, and it falls somewhere between theocracy and secularism, with the sovereign monarch being somewhere between a man and a god figure, a demigod, if you will, sharing the qualities of both. And therefore, those three political constructions are incompatible with Seven Republic completely, and to include them or permit them within the confines of Seven Republic in any way would lead to nothing but perpetual conflict. And conflict is not something that is conducive to a long-term solution in the governance of human beings. Hopefully governance can be achieved without putting conflict at the center of all policy and behavioral decisions. Finally, it follows from what has been already mentioned in this video that the foundational documents of Seven Republic do not include any listing or codification of such things known as rights, freedoms, liberties, entitlements, or privileges. And the reason that those are specifically not included in Seven Republic's foundational principles are that those rights, liberties, entitlements, freedoms, and privileges are generally ill-defined. They tend to be a continuous feature of argument and ultimately, under most political systems present in the world currently, the rights and freedoms are whatever the government tells you they are. They might be there on one day, and a week later they might be denied or reversed depending on what the government thinks it needs, and they're totally open to interpretation. For example, in the United States of America, the rights and freedoms are listed in a bill of amendments to the Constitution, but in the final analysis, the rights and freedoms listed in the bill turn out to be whatever the Supreme Court says they are. And if the Supreme Court says one thing in 1 month, they're quite liable and capable of changing their mind and saying the opposite sometime later. And in a country such as Canada, which has an extensive list of freedoms and liberties, all of them in the final analysis are expressly said to be contingent on whatever the government permits, based on whatever the government thinks it needs. And we look at countries that are openly communist, like China and Cuba and Venezuela at the present time. They have lists of rights and freedoms and liberties, all codified in detail. And these rights and freedoms in these totalitarian countries are basically nothing more than what we would call a sham, or window dressing without any substance. And therefore, codification and bills of rights listed in foundational documents really are not what they appear to be, because they are inconstant, they're open to interpretation, and basically subject to the judiciary. And the judiciary is merely the opinion of a group of men and women who are one way or another appointed or elected to give their opinions. And therefore, this is not something that is considered to be essential to the foundational construction of Seven Republic. Now that basically concludes the things that Seven Republic is not, and which Seven Republic does not have in its foundational structures. The next video, I'm hoping, will describe fairly briefly the moral basis and the moral underpinnings of Seven Republic, and then all the following videos after that will progress through the basic elements of the structure of Seven Republic. And thank you very much for joining us in this video. Please join us again for the next one.